What is going on, everybody? It is Ben Morgan of the Fins Up Network with some news that just came in here early Saturday afternoon. We have got a lot to get to, so we're just going to jump into everything right away. This is actually the second Dolphins-Browns preview video that we have done for this particular game. So in the event that you missed the first one, definitely go back, check that one out. In the comments, since this is the final preview and prediction video, go ahead, let me know your final thoughts leading up to Sunday's game against the Browns. Drop your final score predictions in the comments as well. Get subscribed if you haven't done so already. Definitely appreciate all of you guys that have already done this. But I talked about some big news that happened on Saturday early afternoon, and unfortunately that deals with the injury report because starting quarterback is a loose term right now because Tua Tagovailoa, who was listed as questionable on Friday's latest injury report, was downgraded to doubtful. In a corresponding move, they also elevated Skylar Thompson from the practice squad. So now a lot of signs are pointing towards Tua sitting this one out, and then it's going to either be Snoop Huntley or Skylar Thompson getting the nod at quarterback. Now, keep in mind a couple of things here as well. I'm recording this, like I said, Saturday as soon as the news came out. If Denver wins shortly after this one, we're playing for nothing anyway. So that may play a factor in this. I've been told that Tua is really pushing. He is trying to give it a go. But at the end of the day, if we're not going to end up playing for anything, they may take the safe approach with this one. Let that hip get healthy and then maybe even see what next week brings. But at this point in time, that's probably way too far out into the distance. But for your information, your news today, Tua is officially doubtful. So yeah, get ready. I had to change a lot of prep for this video. My prediction changed. Everything changes, Dolphins fans. Going back to the injury report, also listed as questionable is Terron Armstead. Mike McDaniel sounded optimistic about Terron Armstead. Typically, when he's questionable, he's been able to give it a go. We'll see now as well, depending on that Denver game, if he gives it a go. Kendall Fuller has been ruled out. Anthony Walker has been ruled out. We're actually going to talk more about both of those positions later in this video as well. Kendall Fuller was actually put on IR, so he will be shut down for the remainder of the regular season as well. Tyreek Hill, man, the injuries just keep coming, right? Tyreek's been doing with the whole wrist thing all of these over these last few weeks, whatever. He is listed as questionable. Mike McDaniel didn't sound as concerned about him, so he is listed as questionable. But obviously, another one from the receiver core that we got to keep an eye on. Jalen Waddle, who is listed as questionable, did get some work in during the week. Mike McDaniel didn't sound quite as optimistic about Waddle as he did about some of the other guys, so he's kind of another wait-and-see guy as well. Some bleak news, though, regarding the Miami Dolphins and our latest injury report. From the Browns' perspective, Dorian Thompson-Robinson is officially off their injury report, so he is in line to start. But then David Njoku, we talked about him in the first preview video as well, about, hey, you know, he's a little questionable coming into this one. The Dolphins struggle against tight ends. We catch a little bit of a break because he has been ruled out, so he will not be available for Dorian Thompson-Robinson and the Cleveland Browns. All right, let's dive into a couple of things I got my eye on. Like I said, I had to change a few things up here. So it can never be easy for us Dolphins fans, can it? Let's dive into a couple of things that I'm going to be keeping my eye on in this game. Here's a couple of things that I did have prepped for this. Let's make Myles Garrett disappear a little bit the same way that we did Nick Bosa last week. Do you remember him getting his name called much in that game against the 49ers? Nope. Well, guess what? We got to do it again. We got to do it again because Myles Garrett belongs in that same class as your Nick Bosa's, as your Micah Parsons, some of the elite pass rushers in the entire NFL. So I probably didn't give enough props, thanks, whatever you want to call it, to our tackles last week, both Kendall Lamb and Terron Armstead, for the way they handled Nick Bosa. Well, guess what? If we do have an opportunity to keep our playoff hopes alive on Sunday for this game, it's going to come down to those tackles again. I go back a couple of years ago, and I know it's a lot different team right now. But at the end of the day, we did a great job. Mike McDaniel drew up a great scheme, play calling, shifting of some offensive line, helping with Myles Garrett. The dude was put on a milk carton that time we played the Browns. We've got to do it again. This thing to keep my eye on originally said, how will Tua and the Dolphins offense handle the weather? And obviously with Tua being doubtful, I'm still curious to see, how does this Dolphins offense handle the weather? Because we're getting a break in regards to the overall temperature. It's not supposed to snow. We're not going to have anything like that, but there's going to be a lot of rain. The forecast right now is like 90 or 95% chance of rain throughout the entire game. Plus, we're going to have to deal with some wind. I think it was like 15 miles per hour, and you're going to have gusts that exceed that as well. So on an offense that is super predicated on timing, motion, being in the right spot, weather has proven that it can hinder that in the past. Can we take that next step? And we're not going to get a great example now as well if Tua doesn't play in this game. But regardless, it's the end of December. It's late season stuff. It could potentially be a must-win game. How does our offense handle that weather? And maybe most importantly, what is that rotation at right guard going to look like this week? We saw last week against the 49ers, Isaiah Wynn, Liam Eichenberg. We saw them both getting some reps. Well, with Liam Eichenberg now having some, not Liam Eichenberg, with Isaiah Wynn having some reps now under his belt this season, was that enough to show? Did he prove enough? Is he healthy enough to go an entire game? I sure hope so. I'm guessing you sure hope so, because he really did help push this run game to the next level. But what does that rotation at right guard look right now? Because I know it's a lot of Dolphins fans, outside of the health of the team in general, that interior of the offensive line, specifically those guard plays, that guard play has been really top of mind for the last handful of years. Probably going into this offseason as well, but I want to see what we end up doing at right guard in this one. Let's jump into a couple of questions that came in for this video. Dean Grisham, which players do you think we should play to determine whether or not they get to stay on the team for 2025? Well, I got a couple of these guys, and it's not necessarily to stay on the team for 25, but to at least get them a look heading into the 2025 season. My guys, Patrick Paul, Jalen Wright, Patrick McMorris, Mohamed Kamara. Those are the top ones that come to my mind. Obviously, those are all rookies as well. But even if Teron Armstead is healthy, good enough to go, if this game's meaningless, would we rather see a guy like Patrick Paul get some of those snaps, whether it's at left tackle or right tackle? We think his future with the team is going to be at left tackle. But even if Armstead goes, at some point in time, do you plug him into one of those spots just to get him some NFL game reps? I know he's got some this year, but getting him some more as well as a future cornerstone on that offensive line could be important. Jalen Wright, we've been seeing Raheem Mostert basically get the spell carries, the spell touches and snaps to Devon Achane right now. Jalen Wright really hasn't gotten anything the last couple of weeks. Well, Mostert's like 32 years old right now. His future with the team is probably pretty limited as well. So could we get Jalen Wright going in there? And the final thing, it goes with McMorris and Kamara as well. I think we all want a kind of a reset at the safety position, right? And even if we were to tag Holland, if we were to bring him back on a team friendlier deal, which I still think someone's going to overpay for Javon Holland, I'd be in the favor of going another direction. We're going to need some new safeties, which we're going to talk about here more in a minute as well. Let's go into this one. Why is Tyrel Dodson not playing Dean Smith? So I actually asked my connection with the team on this one because I was kind of curious about this as well. Every time we roll out Duke Riley for meaningful snaps in a regular season game, my head just kind of starts to spin. So yeah, I was wondering about this as well. But in practice, I've been told that Tyrel Dodson has just been kind of out of position a little bit too much, being kind of new to this system, to this scheme. He also it's kind of flying under the radar, but he's suffering from a little bit of a lower body injury. So keep that in mind as well. However, I was told, don't be surprised if we see a bump in snaps for him already this week. We talked about Anthony Walker already being ruled out. We know Jordan Brooks is dinged up as well. So we're asking where Tyrel Dodson is. Quite honestly, it might not be too long before we end up seeing him. Sticking to the theme of where certain players are, Zonka would run. Where is Ethan Bonner? Now, I've got some insight, but I also have a personal opinion on this one. And my personal opinion is that Ethan Bonner sort of feels like a player that was maybe falsely hyped up, propped up a little bit because of what Tyreek said about him, about how he's one of the top 3 fastest players on this team. I think he said he was even the fastest. So he had that. And then he also had some OTA practices, some training camp practices where he looked good. But at the end of the day, that's still just practice plays. He's an undrafted free agent for a reason. So I think he was kind of elevated, propped up a little bit more than he probably should have been. So we probably had higher expectations for him than what were actually realistic. But when I asked my connection with the team, I was told that Ethan Bonner, just in practice and everything he's shown so far, the reaction time to processing the actual play isn't really where it needs to be. So that's a main thing that's keeping him off the field, but also his struggles in the run game. Just get him completely washed out of the play. That's another thing he's been struggling at as well. So at least a little bit of insight as to why you've seen guys like Storm Duck and Saran Neal when guys like Kendall Fuller or Cam Smith have been too injured to give it a go. Let's do another one here. John, is there a specific player or players scheduled to hit free agency in 2025 that you already have your eye on? Yeah, we're at that point of the season, aren't we? I did a quick search on this last night, and I really did a lot of my my targeting here at the safety position. Like I said, I'm one that's kind of in favor of a reset at the position. Hufanga from the Niners, Cameron Bynum from the Vikings, and Justin Reed from the Chiefs are all guys that are scheduled to hit free agency in 25. Obviously, we got a lot of time to pass before we get to that point in time. So those guys could get re-signed. They could get tagged. There's a lot of options out there, but those three really caught my mind because one, they've sort of proven themselves time and time again in the NFL, but they also have that physicality trait as well. And that's a thing that we're going to need from this team to be more just competitive, physical, just, you know what I'm trying to say, Dolphins fans. Like, we just got to kind of shake this finesse thing, and that safety spot, that can be a tone-setting spot in the NFL. So getting one of those guys, obviously, is probably the tops on my list. All right. I talked about things that I had changed. The prediction was one of them. I'm still giving us the win. I originally think I had us at the Dolphins 24, Browns 13. With the Tua news, I'm gonna temper those expectations. I'm gonna still go Dolphins 16, Browns 13. Obviously, like I said, I don't know the Denver Broncos result as of recording this one, but we're in a situation where if they do lose and we still can kind of, I don't want to say control our own destiny because we don't, but at the same time, if we can still play a factor in and win out and take care of business on our end, this is the opportunity. We're avoiding super freezing weather. We're avoiding snow. The Browns are down to what? Their third string quarterback. Nick Chubb is on IR. They have got a ton of things going against them as well. This is an opportunity for this Dolphins team to, hey, let's make a little bit of noise on the road late December when games matter. Like I said, this is not going to go anywhere and shaking any narratives. That was our chance to do that, was at Houston, and we failed. We outright failed at that point in time. So we no longer get as much of a say in this whole playoff run as we would have liked to, as we thought was possible if we'd have been able to make some noise in that game. But hey, this is the team that's on your schedule. This is the time of the season that you got to do it. We'll see if Tua is going to be available or not, but give me the Dolphins 16-13. We'll see how it all plays out. But like I said, get subscribed if you haven't done so already. At some point, either probably Sunday evening or Monday morning, I will get to the post-game recap. So make sure you're staying tuned and checking that one as well. Dolphins fans, I'm going to wrap it there for today. But like I said, drop your final score predictions in the comments, and we will talk to you guys after the game. All right, Dolphins fans, fins up.